Let me tell you a little bit about my father. When he was in his 80s, he found out he had cancer and wasn't going to live much longer, and I was able to fly out and visit him. During that visit, he told me a story of something that happened in his 20s. Let me tell you a little background of my father. He was a contractor. He had learned construction from his father, who had learned it from his father, and many generations back. Because my father was a contractor and had learned construction and been involved in construction all of his life, he had become very good friends with the owner of a lumber yard. The owner of the lumber yard had a private plane, and he invited my father to go on a flight with him. He invited him to go to a baseball game going from Pocatello to Twin Falls. My father was pretty excited to go on this plane and go to this baseball game and said sure, he'd love to go. I'm going to finish the story in just a minute, but first off, family history is a great treasure. And if it's such a great treasure, then my question is, why not do family history? What are some of the excuses that people have? They don't have time. It's all done. It's a waste of time. They don't know how to start. So the question is how to get started. Think of a memory. Tell someone your memory. And best of all, record your memory. So, what is your car story? This is our Suburban that we've had for some 23, 24 years. And we've raised 9 children using this car. Every one of my children has been in this car. Each of them have some memory of this car. Each of you grew up with family car and have memories. So, what was your first car? Do you remember what it was? How about moving in a car? This was my first car and my first big move from California to Wyoming, to Laramie, Wyoming. How about a car name? Do you name your cars? What about the make and model of your cars? How about family vacations? Let me tell you about this car that we took on a family vacation. We had young children and we were traveling from Texas to California and wanted to make sure we didn't have any car problems. So we went and bought a brand new car, bought it like 2 days before we left, and while driving through Albuquerque, New Mexico, I was driving and all of a sudden there was no acceleration. Put the blinker on and miraculously was able to pull over to the side of the road. My husband was asking, why are you stopping here? And I said, well, I was lucky to get here. He jumped out, I popped the hood, and he looked, and there's gas spewing all over the car. He grabbed the hose and reattached it where it was supposed to go. And he said, let's go to the dealership. We took it. They couldn't find anything wrong, said he'd fix it. We never did have another problem. We were able to make it. But it was a little bit frightening, and we learned that just having a brand new car doesn't mean you won't have problems. How about an accident? You've been involved in an accident. Have you witnessed an accident? How about learning to drive? How about riding in a limousine or some other fancy car? This is my daughter going to her senior prom with her friends. Okay, now that you have your stories, some car story, you need to record your story. But where do you record it? You can record it in a journal. How about in a photo album? If you have an image, you can put it in a photo album. Just make sure that you record the date and a little bit of information about what happened. Put the names of the people that were in the photo on there. How about in a notebook? Just a spiral notebook would work. If you just record, like have your children come together and think of some memory of something like the car memory and have everybody record what they remember. The computer, great place to record it. It's easier to share. You can send emails to your family to share the story. It can be recorded. Of course, it won't last forever if it's not transferred to something else or when that computer goes down, but it is pretty safe. Then there's social media. It's a great way to share some of the memories that you have. The problem with social media is that many times after a few weeks, people have forgotten about it. But sharing it is important. My father shared his story with me, and now I have it. Had he not told me, it probably would have died with him and nobody would have known his story. One of the best places to record your story is with Family Search. You would record it in the memories section, and this memories section has a place for stories. You can create a story there. I would suggest you type it up like on Word first and then copy and paste it into the story section. But you can also put in photos or documents. And then there's the audio section. I want to tell you a little bit about my Grandma Rhodes. She was my great-great-grandmother. My great-great-grandmother, Grandma Rhodes, she kept a journal and a life history. And because of this, I know quite a bit about her. In transcribing her journal, I was typing day after day the different things. Most of her entries, many of them said, I read my scriptures this morning and I went for a walk. After typing this up multiple times, I thought, this is kind of boring. And then one day it hit me. This was actually a great treasure. I realized that my grandmother loved the scriptures. She had a love for the Savior. She also went out and got exercise. So I learned something quite valuable from her simple little entries. It's very important to record your daily activities and a life history. Now, because my great-great-grandmother, Grandma Rhodes, recorded that information, I know quite a bit about her. And then I know a little bit about her daughter, which is my great-grandmother, because her mother wrote things, and then her daughter, which is my grandmother, wrote some things about her. But I don't know as much about my great-grandmother. My grandmother, though, I knew her, and so I know a little bit more about her. And then there's my mother. I lived with her, so I know quite a bit more about her. And then there's me. I know a lot about myself, and you know a lot about yourself. This is one of the best places to start, is recording some of your memories. Record the things that you do remember about yourself, about your mother, your grandmother, those that you've known, your father. Just start recording. And start now. Try to go home today and record your car memory. Get started with that. Then there's Find Family Records. Find Family Records can be found on Facebook or Instagram. Each week there will be a posting trying to help you have some kind of a memory, like the car memory. There will be different things posted to help give you some kind of a prompt of something you can write about. There will also be postings on training videos. Now these training videos will be found on a website. This website is called See Family Records, and it's dedicated to having just training videos. The most recent will be on the front page, and then you can follow the menu to find the other videos. Now back to my father's story. My father thought about it and decided that he would rather go on a date. And he called his friend and said, I think I'm going to pass this time. I have something else I would rather do. And the man wasn't upset. He just said, yeah, that's fine. I'll get you next time. So my father went on his date and had a great time. The next morning, my father got up and got the paper. And this is what he saw. Pocatello plane crashes, kills 4 persons. I think my father was a little stunned. I'm sure he was saddened because his friend died, but at the same time, his life was spared. I learned that my father listened to the promptings given to him. My father had a purpose to live. I am so grateful that my father shared this story with me. Otherwise, it would have gone with him. It would have been lost. I wish I had asked him more questions. How did he feel? Did he with those promptings that he'd had. In Joel 1:3 it says, "Tell ye your children of it, and let your children tell their children and their children another generation." The Lord really does want us to record our own memories and the memories of those who've gone before us for future generations. In Helaman 13:35 it says, "We have hid up our treasures, and they have slipped away from us because of the curse of the land." Well, as I read this, I thought, if we don't record our memories, they slip away from us. It doesn't take long to totally forget of experiences that we've had. And especially in my father's case, if he had not shared that with me when he passed away, it would have gone with him. Nobody would have ever known that. And because of the curse of the land, I kind of felt, as I read this, that we become too busy and we think we have so many other things that are so much more important. We really need to take the time to record these memories and things that have happened so that our children and future generations don't forget those who've come before us. So enjoy creating and finding your family treasures.